Well, hello everyone, this is my Enlarger. It's a Durst C35. I've already made a video where I tested it, and after a few uses, I'm afraid the light bulb just stopped working. So in this video, we're going to find a decent replacement and test it by printing an image. Here's the old bulb, and as you can see, it's a bit flat at the top. The screw fitting is E27, and when I give it a shake, I can hear the filament rattling around inside. I tried to get a close-up, but I couldn't with this lens, so I switched to my phone, and there you can see. It's a wee bit burned at the base, and this was the original bulb, a Durst lamp, 55 watts. Now, finding a replacement that's exactly 55 watts with the same shape and flat top was a bit tricky, but I managed to get this one. It's an LED bulb with an E27 screw fitting from Walmart. It's 6 watts, which they say is equivalent to 50 watts. I made sure it's warm light, 3000 kelvins, and that's important. You want something between 3000 and 3500 kelvins. Right then, here's the back of the Enlarger. The screws are accessible, so let's open it up. I've already taken out the original bulb to show it earlier, and as you can see, the inside of the Enlarger isn't all that big. You can't just stick in any old household bulb. So I got this flat top one with the same screw fitting. Like I said, it's LED. I was a bit worried that the size difference and the 5-watt gap might cause some issues, but honestly, I don't think it's that big of a deal. Still, we're going to test it. And for this test, I'm using the same Ilfosol 3 developer, but as usual, I'm mixing it stronger than the recommended dilution since I'm doing paper. I'm using this old film canister to measure, so 1 part developer and 5 parts water. And just so you know, I'm using purified bottled water, not tap. For the fixer, I'm using 1 part fixer to 9 parts water. So that's half a film case of fixer, and then I top it up with 4.5 parts of water. And I'm only mixing a small batch since I'm doing 1 or 2 prints, and any leftover water in the bottle will serve as my stop bath. I think it's time I gave this Enlarger a proper spot in the house. I've not picked a name for her yet, but you know what Bob Ross used to say. Everything needs a little friend, so here she is with a wee pal next to her. For the test print, I'm using a negative I've worked with before. It's frame 13A, showing one of the outer walls of the Palace of Fine Arts in Mexico City. I shot it about 22 or 23 years ago, can't quite remember. It's a very neutral gray, which is great for gauging light. I place the negative in the negative carrier and making sure that there's no side light leaking through. The carrier is exactly the same size as a negative. Then I pop it back into the Enlarger. I'm using Ilfor multigrade paper 5 by 7 inches, but I'm cutting it in half to make 5 by 3.5 inches for test prints. I align the image to the right size using masking tape as a margin guide, and then I make sure it's sharply focused. I want the sculpture details to be as crisp as possible. The largest aperture on this Enlarger is f2.8, but I'm starting at f11 for the test strip. Once it's focused, I cut the paper, and I already had some test strips from earlier, so I'll just use those. I prefer glossy paper, not high gloss, just standard gloss. It's easier to tell which side is the emulsion side. Matte paper can be a bit tricky, and ultra gloss is just a fingerprint magnet, so I avoid it. Once I've cut the paper in half, I put it all back in the black light-proof bag and then inside the original paper box. It's super important to protect it from any light at all. Earlier I showed you the margins I've set on the baseboard. So I put the strip in the center of the projected image and taped it down lightly. Then I grab something flat and sturdy, in this case a wee notebook, and I use it to block the light as I expose the strip in segments every 2 seconds. I slide the notebook over a bit each time. The lamp is on at f11 and each section gets 2 seconds more than the last, so the last bit only gets 2 seconds. Then it goes straight into the developer. It should come out quite light with little detail, just like I did with the original bulb, so this will tell me if the new bulb will behave the same way. After about 3 minutes in the developer, I move it into the stop bath for about a minute to rinse. And then into the fixer for around 10 minutes. And the result, well, the strip's very light, even the darkest areas get too pale. I want more detail in the sculptures and the marble, and the area that only got 2 seconds is practically just pure white, so I'm going to open the aperture to stops to f5.6, and this time each section gets 3 seconds. I want to see if the bulb can produce deeper blacks while keeping the image detail. Once it's been exposed, it goes in the developer again for about 3 minutes. Straight away I can see it's much darker than the first strip. The tonal range looks more natural, so the new bulb seems to be working fine. After 3 minutes, into the stop bath it goes, then a rinse and into the fixer for 10 minutes. I dry both strips with a clean microfiber cloth. Now here they are, side by side. The second strip has a lot more detail, but it's definitely too dark. Even the least exposed areas are a bit heavy. The part that got 24 seconds is nearly pitch black, but you can still see some marble texture, so the bulb is doing its job. I can see the detail even if it's too dark, which is what I was hoping for. Now I set the aperture to f8 and do another test strip exposing each segment for 2 seconds. Same process, develop for about 3 minutes. Since f8 is between the other two apertures, this strip should have a better balance, good whites, rich blacks, and nice mid-tones. I want crisp, sculptured detail, so I leave it in the developer for the full 3 minutes or until the shadows look right. Now I've got these 3 test strips. F11 is too light, F5.6 is too dark, and F8 is somewhere in between. Even so, the F8 strip exposure for 14 seconds still looks a bit light, so I'm going to add 3 seconds to the final print, a total of 17 seconds, but the detail on those sculptures look really sharp already. I had to reenact this next part since I work in total darkness and couldn't film it, so I positioned the paper and projected the image for 17 seconds at f8, but then my camera stopped working, the memory was full. I couldn't stop the development halfway, so I had to make another print. It's harder to keep full sheets submerged in the developer, they float, and if the paper isn't fully submerged, it absorbs unevenly, so always make sure your paper stays underwater. Also, keep your hands clean as any oil on your fingers can affect the print. Before moving the print to the fixer, I sometimes lift it from the developer to check it. From what I can see, I had enough darks and lights, but it's always best to take a closer look. Once everything looks as it should, it goes into the stop bed for a minute and then into the fixer. When I work with full-size prints, I like to place them face down in the fixer to make sure that the whole surface is properly immersed, and here's the final result. As you can see, there's a good tonal balance. I've got a nice range of grays. The Palace of Fine Arts is clad in white marble, which is why it looks so bright. The sculpture details are sharp and I can still see textures in the marble, so I'm really happy with this print. I also noticed that the light distribution in the print is very even, so the light bulb has completed all tests. Since I had to make a second strip, I now have 2 identical prints, so if you'd like to get one of these, leave a comment or send a message. I'll leave all the info below. Thank you for joining me in this video, and I'll see you in the next one.